Hi there, we're here at IBM's office in London today, talking about AI enablement and what the future looks like. I'm Gryszan, the Marketing Director at Logicalis, and I am joined here today by Ricardo from IBM. So you want to introduce yourself?
Morning, Dom. Absolutely. My name is Ricardo. I'm the IBM's Agentic AI leader in EMEA, in Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
Thanks for joining us today. Really, we can't get away from the topic of AI at the moment, and what a great setting here to be in to have this conversation. So, would you mind by starting by talking about AI in the market from an IBM perspective or personal perspective, where you are seeing the opportunities, but also the challenges that come with that in the market?
Absolutely. And we'll reflect on the last few years of AI, artificial intelligence. And to be honest with you, especially I would like to focus on the transition from generative AI to agentic AI, which has happened during the last couple of years. Yeah? It was really probably, back in the fall, 2024, where most analysts, they started to refer to agentic AI like the natural evolution of generative AI. And since then, has been even much faster than the two LLM years. Yeah? All our customers, they are very keen to understand how they can adopt agentic AI agents within their companies at a scale. So it's one of the most frenetic, fastest market opportunities we've seen in many, many years.
And what do you think that opportunity sort of presents to organizations, the embedding AI within their organizations?
Well, I think the real opportunity here, once again, around AI agents, is that there is a great way to modernize many organizations in the way they work, internally with their employees and externally how they interact with their customers or citizens if they are public organizations. So that opportunity, we call it enterprise productivity. It's about adopting, AI agents, perhaps mixed as well with deterministic workflows to reinvent how they work. And in doing that, they are going to be able to be much more productive.
So there's a huge benefit for organizations, both obviously to their employees, their processes, the way they work, but ultimately most organizations are there to serve customers. So the customers are ones that really we want to be receiving the benefit. What do you see as some of the barriers? Like, what are some of the challenges? When there's a lot talked about the capabilities of AI and the North Star and lots of things that we can achieve, but what is preventing organizations from scaling and implementing these sort of pilots?
Excellent question. I think even the challenges, they've been evolving. If you ask me, probably a couple of years ago, the main challenge was fragmentation. And it makes sense because basically what happened is like every single software vendor started to adopt AI agents within their software products, their business applications. Think about it. There is no business application which is not embedding an AI agent instead of a helper. And that's a great opportunity on its own. On top of, everyone was building their own AI agents. So the main challenge back then, and it's still a major challenge, but it was fragmentation, because if you have an army of AI agents that they don't talk to each other, you're going to be defeating the purpose of enterprise productivity, because you're going to have your employee, the user, jumping from one application to another application. So if the future is all about having humans interacting with AI agents in a more effective manner, you must orchestrate all of these technologies. That was the initial challenge, but now the challenge is more complex. Now the challenge is because everyone can create their own AI agents. Creating AI agents is relatively easy. The tough part is what do you do with them afterwards? How do you take them into production? Most customers, they struggle. 80% of the AI agents they get created, according to many analysts, they don't get deployed. So I would suppose the main challenge there is lack of control plane capabilities to help customers to take these AI agents they build onto production.
Can you tell us a little bit more around those controls and what that prevention maybe looks like?
Absolutely. So again, going back that the initial challenge was orchestration, get them to talk to each other. Think about it. When you get multiple agents coming from multiple technologies, some of them different software vendors, applications that you are using, some of them in-house developments, maybe you are building your AI agents with LangGraph, any other technology. It's extremely important to reflect that when we talk about control plane agent ops capabilities, it means that we require 4 main things, potentially 6, that they are observability, governance, lifecycle management, and optimization. And the fifth and the sixth would be, of course, a very strong security and identity management layer, because it's extremely important that, first of all, users, they access to the knowledge that they need to access, and no more, no less. So unless you have like these control plane agent ops capabilities, that would be the main burden and difficulty to get these AI agents taken into production.
Yeah, and that's a really good point you mentioned towards the end there, and that's something that we're certainly seeing, that the aspiration, the ambition is certainly there. And sometimes you mentioned 4 or 6 points there. Some of those they're ticked, they have, the green light. But often as well, there's the element of the infrastructure, the data foundations, and quite often for those, to enable the agentic AI and that ambition there and the strategies, it's important that we don't overlook what sits beneath.
I think you are spot on. I mean, data is always at the very beginning, especially when you talk about AI agents. Quite often, many customers, they focus on RAG, and retrieval augmented generation, AI agents. And unless you have like a good foundation of data, how are you going to be able to exploit, that, data? So you are spot on. Absolutely, Dom.
Yeah, that connectivity piece is critically important. Certainly, you mentioned as one of the core points was governance, and we see that more and more. And quite often, the governance is trying to catch up with the technology evolution itself. Is there anything that you're seeing from customers at the moment around the governance piece that is particularly prohibited, or a security risk for organizations as they look to implement AI at scale?
If you notice, when I was listing the agent ops capabilities, I highlighted governance because, yes, this is one of the main concerns of almost every customer we are visiting these days. And it's very simple. Yeah? When you are becoming an agentic organization, because we deploy more and more AI agents, quite often we need to put in place controls, guardrails across multiple business processes. And we need to go over and reflect on policy enforcements, because you're really going to ensure that those AI agents, they are delivering what they're supposed to both employees and customers. So yeah, most of our customers, they are very, very worried about how they can deploy guardrails across multiple steps of whatever workflow we are implementing with the AI agents. And they are also very worried about what is the most efficient way to enforce policies across models, agents, business processes. So absolutely, when we reflect on agent ops, I would say governance is at the core, together with observability and optimization.
Where do you see the role of IBM within this? So as the organization's ambition grows, we work with organizations like yourselves to help other organizations to build and achieve their business objectives. Where do you see the role of IBM in this?
Excellent question, Dom. As you know, in IBM, we do have something very relevant, that we've been deploying this technology at the scale within IBM for many years. So we do have like this great opportunity of not only providing one of the most solid, technologies for our customers to become more agentic, but also to share our own experience. And I suppose what we are trying to do is, and again, out of our own experience, to help customers to augment whatever agentic AI architectures they've been putting in place. Because the reality is, and I go back to my fragmentation comment, every single software product they use is agentic. So the first thing we're going to do is to understand, what kind of software ecosystem they have, and to bring in a technology that can augment. And our value proposition around agentic AI, that, as you know, is around watsonx orchestrate, intends to bring value regardless where you build your AI agents and where you run your AI agents. So we are committed to come up with that technology, but we do require partners like Logicalis. This is not only about the technology per se, it's about helping our customers to deploy this technology in a meaningful way. Because if we deploy this technology, but we are still working like before, then you defeat the whole opportunity. So I suppose our role is helping our customers to leverage a technology which is going to be augmenting their existing investments and putting a path to transform their business and making them more agentics, but in partnership with top partners like Logicalis, so we can transform the way they work.
Can you talk a little bit more about how the solutions and the technology that IBM is building, and how that can sit alongside some of their own some of their own technology. You said there, a lot of organizations are building their own agents and they've got their own plans, and then you've got the IBM solution. So how does that work? It's not a replacement of what they're trying to achieve, but more something that can support them grow and accelerate their AI adoption. Can you talk more about how that works?
Absolutely. Let me give you two examples. And again, going back to my reflection on the evolution from orchestration to control plane agent ops capabilities. We do have within our own Agentic AI platform Watsonx Orchestrate, but yet again, many customers you visit, they say, well, we are a Copilot house. We've been using Copilot for years, so we want to have Copilots at the front. Some customers will tell you the same with Google, with AWS. And we are perfectly comfortable with that. I mean, if you already made a decision that your front end is going to be with a third-party vendor, you can do that. But still, we can bring in an orchestration layer, which is going to help our customers to get these copilots to work with other third-party vendors like ServiceNow, SAP use, Salesforce, much more effective than perhaps the copilots themselves. Same thing would apply to control plane, to agent ops. Yeah? So you might be saying, I'm building my AI agents in AWS, or I'm building, my AI agents with LangGraph. But yet again, you are going to need observability, governance, lifecycle management, and optimization. And we have that pre-built that we can deploy with whatever AI agents technologies they are using and bring that value. So that's why I go back to the concept of the importance of the openness. If you have a very open architecture, you will not question the technologies the customers they are using, but you will enhance them. So the two examples is orchestration and control plane.
This sounds very much like you can enable that shift from a lot of those more internally focused AI plan strategies or processes where we're certainly seeing that adoption, to then the layer that can really help scale it and move it towards delivering the customer benefit with more of those third parties. And I think that's where it's a very complex world. And would you say IBM helps simplify that or take away some of the pain?
I think both. We can simplify and we can take away part of the pain. By the way, you are raising a very good point. Many customers, they start to deploy internally this technology to totally transform how the employees they work, but many of them, they are also doing equally in the way they are treating their customers, how they are supporting their citizens. There's still a massive opportunity around call centers, for example. Yeah? For years, we deploy assistants, but now with a mix of AI agents, with deterministic workflows, with good voice technology, it's incredible how many things we can do. You can answer, a conversation in a call center with a digital agent that you won't even realize is a digital agent. You'll believe it's a human. But yet again, you might have something within the conversation that is triggering a guardrail, to engage a human. And you can use technology to do this in the most efficient and smooth way you can imagine. So imagine you are a customer of a bank and you are calling in because you're going to transfer some amount of money, because you're going to buy a car. And you are interacting with a digital agent, great benefit. But throughout the conversation, you mentioned that the amount you need to transfer is above the clip level it requires to engage a human. Automatically, a guardrail control plane will trigger that you need to transfer that call to a human. And what you will see is that the technology will allow to transfer the call to a human with a summary of the conversation with the digital agent, specifying to the human what we call agent support, which is the procedure to be followed. And all of a sudden, you streamline a very complex interaction in a very effective manner. You reinvent really how you are working with customers, and the benefit to the organization is enormous.
Yeah, certainly. Are there any sectors or industries that you think are taking this adoption a bit quicker than others, or there's particular use cases where this really stands out at the moment?
It's very interesting. In my personal experience, what we are seeing with this type of technologies is quite consistent across every country and every sector. So if you ask me, Ricardo, do we have like a banking going ahead of telcos or going ahead of utilities or the public sector? No. Every sector we go, everyone is looking at how they can adopt these technologies to reinvent, once again, how their employees they work and how they interact with their customers or citizens. It's quite well spread across every single sector. And likewise, across large companies and small, medium companies, because the challenges for a small, medium business is as high as for a large enterprise. So it's almost like, as I say, something that is here to stay, is a major inflection point that is going to be transforming how we work.
Do you see any nervousness, any trends of organizations that are preventing or not moving forward with this for any particular reason? Obviously, you've talked there about industry sectors, and there's none that stand out. But are there any that, if there's no moving ahead of the others, are there any others that look a little bit more restricted?
The answer is yes. And I would imagine there are two angles here. Yeah? First, in any major technological transformation, you always have some people that they don't want to go at the front, and they say, well, this is great, but let's wait and see. Although in this particular case, if you ask me, many customers, they realize they cannot afford to fall behind. But there is another major challenge for customers these days. Many customers, they are debating between build or buy. They understand they need to become agentic, but they don't know if they need to go for one particular software vendor technology or they should go for an in-house development. Personally, my opinion, and remember my comments about this is about bringing value to whatever software ecosystem the customers they are operating with. I really believe it's about build on buy, meaning you can acquire technologies that they can allow you to be self-dependent in many aspects, because you can come up with your own development for specific core use cases you want to address, but you shouldn't be building everything from scratch, because if you do that, your time to market is going to be awful, and the maintenance and development costs, they are going to eat you alive.
And I guess there's plenty of good use cases, like any business, you learn from others and you see and you adopt. And
Absolutely. I would imagine there are like two main type of use cases. On one side, we refer to the traditional support functions that they tend to be the same across all sectors. So imagine HR, IT, finance, operations. And as I mentioned earlier on, because in IBM we deployed this technology for several years, one of the things we offer through watsonx Orchestrate is a set of pre-built AI agents we built ourselves for the support functions that the customers, they can go, download, and use, at no cost. Not that they are going to be plug and play, but perhaps 75, 80%, of the HR use cases, they can be adopted by any customer. So that's one layer. The other one is the core use cases that they are going to be specific to each industry. If you are an insurance company, you might want to have a specific core use cases for underwriting, for claim management and so on and so forth. So it's a combination of both. And then if you ask me, maybe we need to reflect once again on the call center, customer care, customer service opportunity, because that's quite unique. And again, several parallelisms across the different sectors. There is a major opportunity to modernize even further our call centers operations with AI agents.
We talk about what's next, Orchestrate. What does that look like in terms of like the speed of adoption? And I'm sure it depends on the use case, but how quickly can organizations adopt and accelerate a solution like Orchestrate?
Let me go back to where we come from. You remember during the generative AI years, 23, 24, some customers, they really struggle, to adopt LLMs. They spend several months building LLMs that then they couldn't take into production. I do really believe out of that background, Agentic AI has become much more pragmatic. We are able to meet with our customers. Obviously, you explain the technology, you understand their architecture, but the moment you identify a couple of viable use cases to test the technology, and regardless if it is for internal usage or external usage, we are able to build MVPs, within 6 to 8 weeks. By the way, that they can be taken into production 2, 3, 4 weeks later. So time to market is essential, especially when we are talking about like pre-built use cases. With the examples I gave you a minute ago, you can deploy this technology very, very quickly, and then it's land and expand. Yeah, you start, imagine, you are working in HR, and you want to deploy use cases for recruitment and onboarding, trying to go out there and filter thousands of CVs versus like a job posting, and then identify the best candidates, and then you interview them, and then you go through the whole onboarding process. You might start with that, and then you'll move over to all kind of different use cases within HR. So that's how it works. Time to market is extremely important. In fact, Dom, I would say that if you are testing this technology and you are facing that to deploy you need 6-8 months, step back and rethink. It cannot be. It has to be very fast.
I think the technology, and that's what we're seeing more of. Once the governance piece is certainly ticked and covered off, businesses are looking to move quickly. And it does feel, AI is one of the main things is efficiency. Productivity, efficiency is one of the big things it delivers. So, yeah, it's good to see that adoption, that acceleration can be very, very quick. Working with IBM. So, on a personal level, what do you see as maybe the future? What excites you about what might happen next with this AI journey, which has accelerated and moved so quickly in the last 2 to 3 years already?
I really believe the opportunity is enormous. I would imagine that what excites me is when we can really bring along the whole organization behind these transformational projects. I'll explain myself. It's not only about having our technical teams adopting this technology, building AI agents, which they do, and very effectively. It's about engaging all the different line of businesses, functional experts across the different functions within the organization, understanding this technology and making them part of this transformation. Why? Because when you do that is when all our colleagues on their day-to-day jobs, they are able to identify operational complexities, extremely long and inefficient business processes, manual tasks that we still need to be automatized. And if you use that technology to totally reinvent how they work, I go back to the concept of enterprise productivity. The employee productivity enhancements is 3x, 4x, 5x. And all of a sudden, we really see employees, even within IBM, in the way we work, that we can perform complex tasks in minutes when before we took days, even weeks. So the potential is enormous. But my reflection here is that you need to bring together not only the technology, the domain expertise. So what it makes me excited about it is how this technology has become very accessible now to all the functional experts. And bringing together functional experts with technologies is opening a whole new avenue of transformation. Because I go back to my initial point, anyone can build an AI agent these days, but we want the experts to use this technology. So together with their technical teams, they can reinvent how we operate out there.
It definitely is an exciting journey ahead. Is there one piece of advice, given your experience, that you would perhaps give to organizations who are in the midst of this journey themselves?
Absolutely. I suppose because everyone is preaching agentic AI these days, my first advice is spend some time with our partners, like Logicalis, understanding the technology in detail. It's not good enough to have a 1 hour meeting, with a wonderful 24 hours slides deck. But then you know what it is. You need to go for the test drive. It's not good enough the enablement if they are unable to say, okay, now that I understood, let me propose a couple of use cases. So together with Logicalis, we can do a design thinking workshop and build a prototype, an MVP, for you to test not only the technology, but the business value behind deploying this technology. Then you'll be able to start to initiate that transformational journey towards agentic AI. So I know it's not a glamorous answer, but we go back to the basics. Proper understanding of the technology, and then working with your business partner to come up with some sort of a testing of that around a meaningful use case.
That's kind of it. It's identifying those use cases, knowing your own business, but then opening yourselves up to, partners, organizations like yourselves who know what the art of the possible can be.
Absolutely.
And who knows what the future may bring. And Joel, I think that's probably a good wrap. I think we've had a really good conversation. We've covered a lot. I think some really great stuff that you covered. So I appreciate your time today. And yeah, I look forward to seeing down in 6 months, a year's time, and seeing where the market has moved from then.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for the time. It's been a pleasure, Dom.